Alrighty friends, let's go ahead and make a weave. So to do that, I'm going to be using 21 gauge round. And we're going to cut out 3 pieces here. That's about the same length as around this edge. So I'm kind of just eyeballing it because we will need extra to be able to attach the piece. Okay, just like that. And we are going to be weaving with 26 gauge round. You are more than welcome to weave with 28 gauge round. The reason why I choose 26 gauge round on these weaves is because if I need to go back and kind of like sew attach it to any parts of the frame, it's much easier to get a piece of 28 gauge in between the little gaps when you use 26 gauge to weave. So we're going to do a super simple pattern around this. So we're going to start out, leave ourselves a gap so that we can attach it to our main piece. We're going to wrap around twice, so 1 and 2. The third time going around, we're going to add our next piece of wire. We're going to go around both. Make sure you're not pulling too tight so that your wires are right next to each other. We don't want to do that. We're going to go around both wires once all the way around, and then come around just wire number 2. I'm going to move this piece out of the way for just a moment. And let's zoom in a little bit more here. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to add our third piece of wire. And again, we're going to come around all 3 pieces. And then just around our number 3 wire. Just like that. Now we're going to come back down from behind to our number 1 wire and wrap 3 loops around. Now we're going to repeat our first pattern. So we're going to go up to number 2. All the way around both again. So it's going to look like there's 2 loops around the first 2. Right there. And then just around number 2. And we'll come up to number 3 and go all the way around all 3 wires. And then just around number 3. And now we're going to start over back at the beginning. So 3 loops around our first wire. Up to our second wire. Wrap just around number 2 and get ready to step up to number 3. Around all 3 wires, and then just around number 3. When you're working with a little bit bigger gauge wire, like the 26 gauge round that you're weaving with, it's much easier and very helpful if you kind of place the wire where you want it to go to begin with. So you'll see that I kind of push the wire up where I want it to go, and then loosen my grip on it. There's like no grip to that. And it's going to be much easier to put the wire where you want it then. So push up. And you don't have to do a lot of tugging then once your weaving wire is in between your base wires. So you're not going to pull your base wires out of shape as often. So push that up to the second. Down. Fold it so it goes down to the bottom. Fold it up and around. and then fold it along the back. Once you get the hang of putting that wire where it wants to go, or where you want it to go, sorry, the weaving process is going to get a lot quicker for you. Weaving will always take time, so be patient with it. Know that it's going to be time consuming, but there are different techniques like this one that you can get used to and make the process go a little bit quicker. Okay, every once in a while when you're weaving to go around the edge of the piece, you want to hold it up next to your piece to make sure you're not getting too long and that you've got enough length. So that about covers that side. So we probably need about another 9 sets of these. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will be back. Okay, so I've got the last one to do now. One way too that you can tell if you are tightening your wires too much is if you struggle to put the wire, your weaving wire, back in between your 2 base wires, then you have pulled too tightly on your weaving wire and essentially closed off the gap that you left for yourself in between your base wires. So again, push up, fold it back, push up, fold it down, in between our 2 wires there, fold up, fold down, fold up, down, go around number 3, fold down to the bottom, fold up, 1, 2, 3 times around, and our last one, fold up, whoop, fold down, fold up, fold down, go in between, so we're going just around number 2, fold up, fold down, fold up, around just number 3, back to the bottom. Now we're going to end with 3 times around our first wire. And number 3. Now I'm not going to cut it just yet until I make sure that it's exactly where I want it to be. But we are going to cut this first wire, so we want 3 loops around here too, so it's even on both sides. So I'm going to tuck this wire back up in between here. That's just me having a moment where it has to be even. You don't have to do that. I just like things to look even when I want them to look even. Make sure nothing's pokey right there. Good, good, good. Okay, now we left ourselves these nice gaps up along the top here. So that top is going to face out the bottom part here, or around our base wire number 1. All the woven wraps are pretty darn close together, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get the 28 gauge in between if we need to secure it to the frame, but we do have some small gaps in there, so you could absolutely use weave number 1 or weave wire number 1 to go to the outside. I'm going to use it on the inside though. So we're going to find a spot to at least get one of our wires through so it's secured down. All right. Let me zoom back out here. So I just bent wires 2 and 3 up to get them out of the way. And because this is such a tight area and I'm going to be securing this in multiple different ways, I'm just going to wrap it the one time around and then go ahead and cut off my extra and tuck in the end. Okay. Now just gently, where we need our bend to go, I'm going to go ahead and bend our wires, just like that. And then same thing, let's go ahead and do another bend right here. And now that it's all bent, you can see that I did too many over here. So I'm going to actually undo the last two. So we'll go ahead and cut this. I would rather do too many than not enough. I'm going to undo this really quick and then I'll be back right after that. Okay, so I've gone ahead and undone the last two patterns there. And I want to leave the 3 weaves there so that it ends the same on both. So I'm going to go ahead and snip here. And then make sure there's nothing sharp and fold that end down. All right. And let's get our last bend in place here. All right, kind of similar scenario that we did on the first one. We're going to bend wires 2 and 3 up out of our way and use wire 1 to kind of tuck down right in there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut the excess. I'm not going to use this part for any of the design. Or extra designs, I should say. Now, this is where the sewing to the frame part comes in. You can see how loose that is. So we want to get that nice and secured against the frame so it doesn't go anywhere. So I'm probably going to just secure it right here, and that'll keep it nice and strong. So I'm just going to grab about anywhere from like 4 to 6 inches of 28 gauge. Now you can adjust where you put your bends before you secure this part down so that it lines up to the shape of your frame. So what I'm going to start out doing is going 3 times around just our frame here. Okay, now from there, we've got this lovely gap right there. We're going to go in between that gap and not let your wire go. That's a key. So in between that gap, and then we're going to go through the frame again as well. Pull that down nice and tight. Now we're going to go back through just the frame. Three times. And then again, once more, we'll find our gap here. Go through our weave and our frame together. If it lets you. There we go. And 3 times around the frame. And then we're going to go one more time. Through the weave and the frame together. You can see how easily that goes through. I'm not sitting here forever struggling to get my sewing wire through the weave because the gaps are big enough. Working with wire, and especially small wires, can be extremely tedious and difficult. So wherever you can hit the easy button on those, absolutely do it. All right. And then this spot we can secure down more with these wires. So I'm going to go ahead and finger on either side, securing my piece, wiggle and break. Now as you wiggle, I kind of go in a circular motion and pull out at the same time. So circle and pull. It breaks fairly quickly. Just make sure we're not covering too much of the flashiness going on in there. That's perfect. Okay, we got this gap to fill in as well. You can do, of course, whatever you want with it. You can do a second channel, you can do another coil, you can do another weave up there. I think I want to take some square wire, twist it, and put it there. But first, we've got all of these extra wires to work with. So let's do something with those, shall we? This is where we get to add the pretty twists and coils. And circles and whatever you would like to add. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end this one. So we're gonna cut a little tail and tuck it in here. Just be careful when you're tucking the ends of the wires that you don't scratch your stones. There's a tiny bit of flashes down in there, so I don't want to cover a bunch of that. So I think I'm going to bring this one this way. Get a little bit extra design around this channel here. Now, if you decide to add an extra design around your channel like I am, just make sure that you're not putting too much pressure on it so that you pop any of your stones out. Just bending them back and forth. This one's going to be a little tricky because the coil's right there. But I think we can pull it off. Ow. All right, I'm going to cut a tail end. There we go. Now we can go back and adjust it, make sure all of your stones are good, which they all look pretty darn good. Now we're going to use up a few of these over here before we add our square wire over here.